Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 466, part 2 of our epic Wonder Woman exploration. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean is keeping me up to all hours of the night while I'm in Italy. So says the sensei of the Whatnot Segula, the Duke of and the elder statesman of the podcast.
Buongiorno. How's it going, eh?
It's great, Jim. Thank you for joining us for this episode. On this part, we're going to be finishing up our two-part discussion that we began last episode, discussing, on this episode, issues 96 to 100, the last part of this great Wonder Woman storyline that began with the contest. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. You know, Jim usually talks about all the bundles, and I do want to encourage you to check out the Rebirth bundles because they have 2 bundle packages that are really high discount. They're 50% off. But I also want to shout out to, we don't mention it enough, DCBService.com is your pre-order source for collected editions, DC collectibles. I'm looking right now, for example, at the Batman Black and White statue, Robin, by Frank Quitely. That Batman and Robin run by Morrison and Quitely, it really hit a spark for me, and it's a book that meant something to me. To be able to have this statue, I've been collecting a lot of the regular Batman Black and White statues, but to be honest, I don't have any Robin ones. And this one looks awesome. It's regularly $80, 32% off, only $54.40. The nice part about that is, if you try finding these statues later, a lot of them go out of print pretty quickly. You're going to pay an upscale price if you try to find them on eBay. To get them at a premium price by pre-ordering them is a great way to do it. So I just encourage you with anything that you're looking to pre-order, check out DCBService.com and see if they can save you some money. Over at InStockTrades.com, they always have their deals of the week, and I'm a big fan of these. They have the all-new Wolverine trade paperback, Volume 1, 50% off, only $8.99. Daredevil Back in Black trade paperback, Volume 1, 50% off, only $7.99. Twilight Children, I'm loving this Vertigo series, 50% off, only $7.49. Grayson trade paperback, Volume 3, Nemesis, 50% off, only $8.49. Kingdom Come, the 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition. This one I think I'm going to pick up just for some of the extras. 50% off, only $19.99. We have been talking about Wonder Woman. They now have Wonder Woman by Mike Deodato, trade paperback. 50% off, only $12.49. This trade paperback in particular, if you haven't been reading these issues, it's a great way to pick up some of these issues. And that's the Wonder Woman trade paperback by Mike Deodato. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk Wonder Woman.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
First of all, Jim, we're recording you live from Italy, so welcome to the show from overseas.
Ciao. How's it going, eh?
So this is actually, is this the third time we've done this?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Well, it's my third time being over here, so it probably is the third time we've done something from here.
Because I know we've done it. I think we've done at least 2 times before where you've been over in Italy and we've attempted this. So
yeah, it's got to be third time. Third time's the charm, as they say. But it's got to, because this is my third time here, and it's as always, it's a neat time. I really do enjoy being in Italy, and we got to go to Germany this year because we also try to do another country besides Italy, and this trip was Germany as well, so that was kind of cool.
Had you been before?
No, I've never been to Germany. So again, it's a new stamp to the passport, and just a new place where Whatnot is now. The international incident I almost caused was really a nothing, so it's okay. Culture, it's still, we look at things differently than other people, and I don't know. I didn't think I was being insulting, but apparently I was.
Hey, as long as they've got a microphone in the jail you wind up in, I'm fine.
I know. Yeah, we avoided jail time this time, so hey, it's good.
Well, on that note, on this episode, we're going to be talking about the second part of our Wonder Woman discussion, going through Wonder Woman issue 100. This issue we're going to kick off with is issue number 96. William Messner-Loebs is on writing, Mike Deodato Jr. on art, Costanza on letters, Mulvihill on colors, Hernandez Rosenblatt, the assistant editor, Kuperberg is the editor, and Wonder Woman, of course, created by William Moulton Marston. Apologies for any name butchery on the entire creative team, because this is on a short list of really enjoyable and special Wonder Woman runs for me. And I should comment on also the Brian Boland covers, because they're beautiful covers. But I've been really excited to talk about part 2 of this, because we did a lot of speculation in our first discussion on where this is going to go based on our experience of reading this. I forgot a lot of the second part of this. Obviously, I knew where the end game goes in this storyline, but I forgot a lot of the details along the way, and this has been a fun read.
Yeah, I tell you, with one with the Joker just popping up was like a what? And just everything where this went through for me, this was a really cool story that got me wanting to read more from this time period and pull up like what the issue immediately after this. I'm like, I had to buy it. I had to read it, because I had to see if they acknowledged, the end game, what happened here. Then I'm looking at, okay, where do I need to start on to pull up the earlier stuff? And so, yeah, I'm going to be reading some more of this stuff.
To your point about some of the earlier stuff of this, this entire run, because the run ends with issue 100. The creative team changes with issue 101. John Byrne comes on as the writer-artist, and the run takes a new direction. But it, to your point, it does address what happens here. But it really is, this is the ending of one era and the beginning of a new one. This whole run, right from the get-go through issue 100, is incredible. It's on my short list of favorite Wonder Woman runs. Very well written. The characterizations that were done here, not just of Wonder Woman, but really developing a very strong supporting cast for her, and a philosophy of how she behaves as a character, but also her villains, and establishing a gray area between what is a hero, what is a villain in this universe, I think is just really well done through the entire run. And I liked the exploration of, a lot of times we talk about Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne. The establishment of Diana as a person, outside of just being Wonder Woman, was really well done throughout this run, and it comes to a head in this storyline, and I really enjoyed that part of it, because I think that is part of the interacting with a supporting cast. It's not just the superhero supporting cast, it is your day-to-day people that you interact with in the city. And it's different, I think, when you're Wonder Woman all the time. She's Diana. She's Wonder Woman. Her interactions with this particular city and its people were in and out of the costume with them knowing who she is.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool thing with the fact that she's Diana, and people knew her as Diana. People, she had friends outside of being Wonder Woman, and she's walking down the street and she's Wonder Woman and she's Diana, and that for me was kind of a neat thing, especially because we see how horribly wrong it went for Clark in the current universe, wherein his secret identity got exposed, how bad things went for him. But with her, because when she came on the scene, there wasn't any concealment. There wasn't any hiding. And we saw it did affect her friends, where the ones in the hospital and just all the craziness that goes on with the people around her. So it's kind of a neat thing to say with the hero, to have her be completely out there, be completely, exposed.
Wally West, his run in Flash was exploring this as well, where the universe knew that Flash was Wally West. Similarly to this, it was equally different, where because it was the Flash and because of the way that his city works and the people work, it was different than what you're mentioning with Clark. And I think it's neat that you can explore this with different characters and have very different results. And a lot of that depends on the people, the city, how your identity is revealed, and really the overall temper of the universe at the time, because this is obviously it's a different era, and it's a different place. So it's interesting to see how this works out. You mentioned the Joker before, and I loved this because this is an example where a shared universe really works. The Joker comes in, gets away from Gotham for a little bit, and sees what's going on, where we've got these crime bosses that are trying to take control. And they're hiring out, as time goes on, they're hiring bigger and bigger names to try and take each other out. Well, The one person that you wouldn't go to hire from the get-go would be the Joker. He just, as the agent of chaos that he is, rolls on the scene and basically inserts himself into the whole fray, saying, hey, buddy, I'm on your side. I don't know that she would want the Joker on her side, but she has little to no choice because of the nature of the way that he works in a situation. It does show in the DC universe when you escalate and you eventually bring in the craziest of crazies, or you start bringing in demons, you start bringing in extreme magic, how a situation can grow way out of hand, which is where this story goes. The Joker really is kind of in a weird way to say this for how crazy he is, he's a stepping stone to it even escalating further as the storyline goes on. So it is really building a bridge. We've gone from Cheetah and some of the normal characters, Poison Ivy and Cheshire, to now the Joker, onto magic and demons and, taking it to the next level.
Oh my.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I really liked about this was the focus on Diana. Even though Diana lost the role of Wonder Woman, she remained the central focus of the storyline. Artemis was, and her role as Wonder Woman was really as a supporting cast member. You wanted to see what was going on with her storyline, but they never put her in the forefront, which was very different from what was going on with Superman and Batman when both of them were replaced in their books. They took a backseat to the person who was surpassing them. In this case, Diana never took a back seat, and I found that far more interesting. I'm not knocking either of those stories. Nightfall's one of my favorite stories. I love the death and return of Superman. I liked that they didn't cookie cutter this and say, well, now let's put Artemis in as the forefront lead character and Diana's in the background. I liked that they took a different approach, because I think it made this story stand out the same way that Nightfall and Death and Return of Superman does, because none of those stories are cookie cutter. This is not cookie cutter. Very different that we got to see Diana trying to... She's like, I'm still Diana. My belief system's still the same. My need to protect my city is still the same. It doesn't matter what my mother's done. It doesn't matter there's been another contest. When I leave the island, I've still got my powers. I've still got the responsibility associated with it. I'm going to throw on a new costume and just be me. And I really liked that. I liked that, fine, do what you want. I'm still going to be me and do my thing. I might need to fit in a little differently because I'm not Wonder Woman now, but I'm still going to have my same code and really react to what happened to me, because her code changes and shifts slightly because she's like, well, I'm not Wonder Woman anymore, and quite frankly, my friends need some help, so now I'm going to be a private eye and do this whole thing. I love the status quo change, but it's subtle, not this big dramatic thing. I thought, to me, it was far more interesting.
Yeah. It's funny because with this whole thing going on with the two, with Diana and Wonder Woman, being two separate people now, it did pop in my head an old Captain America story where Cap got basically stripped of the shield and the title of Captain America, and somebody else became Captain America, and he was the captain. He was running around in a slightly different, costume. His shield wasn't the same super shield that he had before, but it was a really good shield. And it was him dealing with, losing the role. And I thought that, again, because that story did the exact same thing where they both had both characters in the Captain America title in the regular monthly book. And I think that is a neat way to handle a changeover where you still have what's happening to the person you're used to and an introduction of this new person and how they're different, how they're the same, where they're going to slip up, where they're going to excel. Because this, in ways, it showed Artemis doing some really good butt kicking, but she wasn't seeing the full picture. And I think that's part of the script. That's like the big difference that Diana and Artemis gave to the role, where Diana got used to the world of man. She could understand the games and the cons being played, whereas Artemis was just going full force, right into the universe and just kind of taking it at face value. And I thought that for me was a really cool just exploration and something that you when you're reading it the first time, you can see the obvious differences, but then when you go back and you read the second time, third time, that's when you see, okay, she was getting played by this guy. Oh yeah, from day one, Artemis was getting played, and you see that come out, and it didn't portray her any, she wasn't, I never thought she was stupid for it, but you could see she was just naive, and she wasn't used to this world.
Well, it was very Rocky 3. Because remember in that movie, Mickey was setting up fights for Rocky?
Yeah.
You know, he was specifically picking certain fighters for Rocky to fight early on. That was before Rocky fought Mr. T, Clubber Lang. This is the same thing. These agents were actually setting up fights for Artemis. That's why the names were so over the top, like the chauvinist and stuff like that. And it really was the fact that these were plants. They were actors that were actually being put into a role. And to the point where the one actor who played the chauvinist didn't actually realize that he never realized that this wasn't a role for him, that like Artemis thought it was real. He went in there and just kind of did his thing and then moved on to his next job. And I thought that was an interesting part of the storyline, the fact that Artemis all along, to your point, she didn't lose anything because she was really being her. She didn't engage the setup. She wasn't looking for that. She really was trying to make a change. Her agents were trying to set up situations where they could brand her and some way use it to market her in a different way. I think in many ways the agents didn't realize that she didn't entirely know what was going on, which was, I like when you take people who are not part of our society and have them engage in our society. I think when Wonder Woman's early story arcs where she comes into our world and she's kind of a fish out of water because she doesn't understand the world of man and that, you know, that culture and all the technology and the media and how it all works and how you got to play the game. I think that's always a charming part of the initial early Wonder Woman stories, to see Artemis go through something very similar but be just a little bit more edgy. I think it's quite interesting and engaging about her, too, because it really is her coming fresh off her contest into this world and being a little naive. And I like that part about her. It doesn't make her stupid, to your point. It just makes her a little unaware.
But see, I also took it as the agents that she had were set up by the White Wizard.
Oh, yeah.
So it's even more of just, not just them setting up for the brand. They were setting her up for the kill.
Yep.
They're setting her up for the slaughter. And I think that was because especially later on in the issues, Hippolyta admits to the visions and all this stuff that Hippolyta, she's envisioned the death of Wonder Woman. So we go through all this stuff to put somebody else out there, and it in a way it's a horrible story, and not horrible as in badly done. It's just horrible thing for this person, for Hippolyta to do, where she's like, oh, I see someone's going to die. Well, let's make it somebody other than my daughter, and you understand it because, mothers will protect their, parents will protect their children at any cost, but we really see her go with that at any cost, where she's pretty much sacrificing Artemis for that end game. And you go back to, the first discussion where it's, you see her initially keeping Artemis's people out, knowing that Diana would insist on them being in there. So she's really feeding one of the Artemis's crew to, for the slaughter, and it's, in a way, you look at it, you think about it, you're like, okay, yeah, protecting your daughter, but on the other hand, you're like, that's just wrong, man. Wow.
Cheetah and Diana, the battle with them versus the Earth Titan, I thought was really great. I loved the idea of Cheetah, through honor, getting to kind of be friendly with Wonder Woman, feeling like that she owes her something and that there is some form of honor amongst thieves with the two of them, where she is sort of a friend of Diana's. Yet, as a reader, at any point in time she could turn back to her ways. That circumstance would lead her back in that direction. But it really is neat to see the two of them team up and there really being some form of respect between the two of them and how they work. This is a very Diana move. Wally West, I referenced that earlier, his relationship with Pied Piper was very similar, where, over time they became best friends and that relationship fostered, but yet you could see circumstance that would lead Pied Piper maybe to become a villain again. It's interesting when you see them explore these type of relationships with certain characters. I don't think it works for everybody, but it certainly does for these characters, and I really quite enjoyed this exploration. Seeing them battle the Titan, though, and seeing the two of them work together in order to defeat this giant foe, I thought was really cool. I love the action sequences in this book. Honestly, throughout this entire series, some gorgeous action sequences, great use of the powers of the characters, and just really action-packed and beautiful.
Oh God, yeah. And I think again, it's one of those where we're seeing really cool art. The art movements. Showing the stagnant image showing us movements and going through with just that the fluidity of what is combat and what is just these two characters blasting into this massive creature of rock. You got that again. Great action, great fluid. You could feel it. You can go through. And I liked how the fight was taking place outdoors in the darkness. So it had more of that, that dark, the bluer shading, but they never took away any of the details. Sometimes I've noticed, with, a comic book, if they're doing a night combat scene, they'll make it too dark and you get to lose some of the coolness of, some of the visual art. But this one, they did a great blue tint to it, and it was a nice bam, whoosh, boom, crash, bang, all the various cool, just that. It's a image from an era, and it's one of those things where I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, you put about an image through an era. I really love the flight sequences with her in that combat as well, because I think certain artists understand when characters gain more confidence in flight. I love when they draw it like as an athleticism, but it's like a flowing athleticism. Like you see her fly, not today, Earth Titan, and she's got her leg tucked up and she's kind of like flowing back there, but it just seems like it's effortless for her. Then she bursts, kind of whooshes off of him. You'll never catch me. Again, the arms are out. There's kind of a grace to how she's flying, but a confidence. And I think that is something when you initially see characters fly and it's awkward, but then as a character does it over time, they gain a certain confidence and a style to how they fly. I think it's something when artists play around with what that stylized flight looks like, I think that's something that's pretty spectacular.
One of the things that I really digged about this story was just the setup, because it's with this white wizard, we get him in there, and you're thinking throughout this whole thing, I was thinking one thing. I never saw it going to the big mega mondo demon. I never saw that. I kind of was seeing it going through where the demon possession would be the big mob boss, and he would be one of those guys, I want power, more, feed me more, kind of, and I was seeing him becoming this great evil. I never saw this guy turning into that great evil. I think that for me, was one of the cool scenes, especially like this one sequence where the boss is just sitting there and you can just see him kind of meditating. He's got a white glow to him. He's the white wizard, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's working with the mob boss. Yeah, he's a bad guy, but there's not going to be. I never saw it going the way it did, and just looking at like the dialogue, looking at some of the stuff he's talking about, how with love, hatred, lust, envy, joy, all these raw, naked emotions, he kind of telegraphs it, but you still didn't see it coming. And even when he's talking about the female reporter, he's like, hey, I require her. That's all you need to know. And you're thinking, okay, something else. I was not thinking sacrifice. I wasn't thinking where this went. I was like, man, this was, again, one of those really cool story elements where it laid it out there for you. And then as it hits, you're like, oh, why did I see that coming?
They swerve a lot of things in this. There's obviously we're kind of jumping around. Now, were you saying that the mob boss becomes the big demon?
Well, that's what I was thinking from the beginning of this thing. Like, because they talk about this great evil coming, and I was thinking, okay, the mob boss, I was imagining, because he constantly wanted more power, and I was thinking the wizard was going to give him more power, and I was thinking throughout all of this, as he's getting this, every time the wizard and him meets, he's like, I need more. I'm thinking, oh, okay, this mob boss is going to become some big mega demon type thing, and that's where I wasn't thinking the wizard, because normally when you're a magic user, you realize there's a line I don't want to cross, because once you cross it, you can't cross it back. So I was thinking this the wizard was going to have the mob boss take on all that power and lose control. The
wizard was a great swerve, because like you, I really thought that he was content to be kind of an instigator, and facilitator of all kinds of nonsense and chaos, but not really looking to be in charge and to run everything and take everything over like he did. Really was just biding his time for the right opportunity to do what he did. I liked that swerve because I didn't see that coming either. And I thought it was really great that winds up being the one that goes on to be the demon, because you're right. As we're looking at the mob boss, we're seeing the battle between the two of them, and you have to think that one or the other becomes the main foil in this whole storyline. I didn't see it coming because of the fact that he really was hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to use it, And again, also other, just other cool setups with the Joker, where he wasn't doing the traditional Joker killing just a bunch of people for the heck of it. It looked like they made it look like the Joker was actually working with, with the I'm drawing a blank on what's her name, the female mob boss.
Sazia.
Thank you. Drew a blank there for a second. But I loved how initially they're going after, her enemies, and it's looked like, oh, okay, is the Joker working with her? And that was another one of those weird kind of moments. I was like, what's the Joker's end game? Because it's never one-sided. It's never A or B. There's always a D, F, or G on when you're dealing with the Joker. You don't see it coming, and this was a great setup for where this was actually going and what team the Joker was actually playing on.
And seeing the Joker Venom come into play so often in this storyline, because you had the battle between Sazia and Polly Longo going on, while at the same time, behind the scenes, we do get to see another Artemis segment, again, with this time with the Exploiter. And I gotta admit, this is where, reading this again for this particular series of podcasts that we did, I remembered where this storyline wound up. But I didn't remember, I thought that the Exploiter and, the other characters that we see along the way that she fights that are setups, I thought that they were really meant to be kind of like these 90s kind of, over-the-top extreme villains. I forgot that they were setups. So as I was reading them, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're kind of, poking a little fun at the anti-hero thing. I loved that it had that additional layer of being setups, because when you initially read it and don't realize what's happening, they do take on a very different tone than they do, to your point, in your second and third read-through. It's where the storyline has a lot of layers to it, I think, over how much is really going on in this. It is worth rereading the whole thing again, knowing what you know at the end, because it does take on a very different tone.
Yeah, and again, with that Exploiter fella, part of me wondered how much of him was mercenary, how much of him was another actor again. Because especially the cool scene when he pulls out the gun, Artemis shoots the arrow into the barrel and the gun explodes. She even comments on what idiot fires a gun after he sees the barrel is blocked. And then my answer is an actor who doesn't know what actually happens in the real world. If this guy was an actual mercenary, if this guy was an actual, physical fighter, violence person, he would know better than to actually fire the gun. He would have, gone to plan B with the chain or had another weapon or something else lined up. So it's, again, second and third read-throughs gets me wondering, who is the Exploiter? Is he just another actor?
Well, they addressed that. Because remember, the actor who was in the first bit was actually going to play the Exploiter, but he thought that the character was a little too much for him. So he said he actually explained it. They hired somebody else for that role who was a murderer, and that was what led him under the lasso to do what he did.
Okay, gotcha.
So, I mean, to your point, they did address that. They couldn't get an actor of it's almost as strange to say that, of the same caliber. And I say that very loosely, but he did make the point saying, it really, what they were trying to do with the Exploiter, he said that was really not the direction I chose to go in. But I really did like teaming up with her, and if she wants to do something else together. So he never realized that she was, in fact, not an actor as well. So he was like, I didn't want to play that role, but I'd certainly love to work with her again. I thought it was really great the way that played out, because it just shows the depth of the storyline. And here's the thing, you can laugh at it from a satire standpoint, but then you look at it and from a very serious storytelling standpoint, it doesn't take anything away from Artemis. Because of the fact that these were big guys who were strong, who would give her a run for the money, even with the gauntlets she was wearing, because the gauntlets didn't give her the power of Diana. The gauntlets gave her more power, but not the power that Diana has. So there was already a storytelling explanation as far as why you put these guys against her. She's going to have to really do her best to take them down. And I really liked that it didn't take anything away from Artemis in the fact that these were setups, but you looked at them and kind of you got to chuckle and go, he didn't want that part. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want that either. Yeah, though you do get nice perks with the super muscles automatically. Yeah.
And I think what really worked with that as well was the fact that Artemis was not the forefront character. So when you saw those sequences, they were very contained. They did show Artemis's determination and fighting skills, and also her trying to fit into the world kind of like as a fish out of water. But I think if those sequences had been expanded, that may have gone wrong for the story. It might have taken away something from Artemis. It really is how you do balanced storytelling with characters. If you're going to go this route, you really do want to leave her in smaller segments where you kind of get a taste and then fish back. A taste and fish back. Her political philosophies regarding Diana, I thought were very interesting as well, because she really was putting out a platform. My sister has not been doing enough. I am here to take the action she has not been taking, to take the role she should have been taking all along. So balancing that out with some cool action sequences that were setups really worked well for the character, because you started developing a platform, while at the same time we're still rooting for Team Diana, because she really is our main character. She's still doing her investigations. She's really in the most danger because she's facing these bits that eventually do lead to a convergence with Artemis, because Artemis is in many ways heading towards the path of investigating the same thing.
Yeah. It's funny, sometimes I sit here and go, yeah, he's right. And I forget I need to talk as well.
The interesting part about this storyline is when you see characters like Moot and you see Diana facing these characters, I really love seeing a confident Wonder Woman. There's something about her as a character. I like that her power set, even though she's super strong like Superman, her power set's different. The way she handles things are very different than Superman. There is a certain grace to her combat because she really is a combatant. She's a trained combatant. And when you take advantage of that in fighting styles, in her book in particular, it does set her apart. In many ways, she is an interesting amalgamation of cool parts of Batman and Superman, because Batman's like this trained and honed fighter, right? And in some ways, a Nightwing, because Nightwing is more of an acrobatic fighter. Superman, on the other hand, has the power, but he doesn't have the trained combat skills that the other two I mentioned do. So it's neat when you see Diana just having the warrior's way about her. It just kind of works whether you've got her in this suit of armor fighting and leading the charge, or you have her in a traditional costume, or non-traditional in the case of her choice in this particular case, which is really reminiscent of the time. This story does end with this issue ends with a really cool cliffhanger of the Joker just kind of saying, oh, you think you got it all figured out? Guess what I'm wearing?
Again, and not only guess what I'm wearing, the countdown, it's down to 2 as he opens up his vest, massive dynamite strapped to his chest. I absolutely loved it, because when Diana shows up, she's talking to Sazia saying, hey, what are you doing here? Are you okay? Wait, you're chained to the desk? You're chained to the desk, and Sazia's just trying to keep very cool, very calm, doesn't want to upset the crazy Joker. And I love just how this whole thing played out, because as she's confronting him, all the Joker's doing is just doing the countdown. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, opens up, and you see the dynamite. Again, this was a neat Joker and Diana interaction for me, was something I was like, oh, I never thought I would see that, or I would want to see it, but that's really cool.
And it actually being paralyzing face cream was brilliant. See, that's one of the things I like about the Joker. When he's well written, people recognize he's crazy, but he's brilliant at the same time. He'll do things and set things up for the purpose of the bomb was really sleight of hand. Let me get you close enough so I can spray you with this. This will paralyze you, now I'm in charge. That leads to that whole bit with him where he's, kind of talking her down at this point because she can't do anything else. And we fish to the bit with Paulie Longo and the Wizard, where you get to see all of Sazia's people converging on him, but they actually have been poisoned with Joker gas.
And again, really cool moment with that, because Longo's like, hey, how come we're not dead? Because Joker is playing with us. And I love just how that reality of what the Joker's doing, that it's not just about killing. It's about the game. It's about being the Joker. It's about being one step ahead of you. And he's going to do it his own way.
What ended up happening in that jungle where Artemis is there and she sees all that death in front of her, I really like the way these transitions happen, because it's almost like she's responding to the Joker sequence, and we see, no, she's responding to this great travesty that's happening there. And her guide seems to die. Again, these are the agents taking things to the next level. You know, we're getting a success with people are noticing her now. She's becoming validated. They've got people listening to her message and seeing her as their new Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman that's willing to take more action, that is an agent of social change. And, you know, this is somebody you can merchandise, right? You get all that bit going. She's really just doing what her real intention was from the get-go. Let me make a change on this world. This is a travesty. I need to fight against this. This will not happen. And the storyline just continues. She throws the lasso around him, and he's the one that was the murderer. And that was why they had to get somebody that was willing to really try to use weapons on her. When she throws a lasso around him, you know, all of his basically junk from the past comes out, and he has to end it all because of it. Again, just a weird way that the storyline went. But it does show that how powerful that lasso is in what it compels people to do, how it compels people to reveal their truth. Do you think that would have happened if Diana had thrown the lasso around him? How would she have handled it differently?
See, I think the lasso is also based on what the wielder is using as well. Artemis is more, Artemis is more out there. Artemis is more in your face, more direct A-B, whereas Diana was more finesse with the lasso. And I don't think he would have gone to such an extreme emotion where he would have, where he killed himself if Diana had been in charge, because again, it was Diana in charge of the lasso. Diana using it and getting the information out of the guy. Whereas with Artemis, because she is so, in your face, the lasso pump the truth right in his face and actually really just, compound it on him. So for me, I was reading it as each one of them handles it differently. That it's because she even says, I'm not completely used to it. Let's see how this goes, or something like that, where she's saying, hey, let's see where this goes. So she didn't completely know what was going to happen, with dealing with it. So it's, I don't know. It's, again, with this whole sequence, the thing I loved about it was that he had a different name this time. And he had the gun mounted where his blown-up hand was. And to be honest, I got to admit, first time reading through, I didn't realize they were the two of the same people, because they had the different names. Because this time he's wearing a mask. This time he's got the gun mounted, and it's mounted on the same hand that blew up before. So it's kind of funny, that you don't see it. But again, it was a great story, great layout, where a nice swerve.
Where is the gun mounted?
On his right hand. It looks mounted to me.
No, if you see the page before where he goes, her life is also mine to take, as is yours, meddler. He's got his hand there. Both hands are present. Do you see it?
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
So it's interesting how.
Okay, yeah.
That was so, because I thought the same thing you did until one of my later read-throughs, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, he's got both hands. So I don't know that that's necessarily the same guy as in the last sequence. And I thought that initially too, but then when that other actor was talking about the fact that they initially had him, and then he didn't want to play the other parts, or he didn't want to play the part of the, I think he didn't want to play this guy. This right. is where I think the shift happened. Because he was addressing, when Diana finally talked to him and Diana got the reveal that, like, oh, this is all a setup, because Diana's the one that gets that part of it. He was talking about how there was one of the roles that he didn't want to play, which I was assuming was this one. And I think this is where it shifted off. Like, he didn't want to work with her again in this particular sequence because of the nature of this character and just how vicious he was.
Yeah, he didn't want to do the killing of the women and children or any of that stuff.
So I think that this is where the shift happened and why the character looked a little differently in this sequence. It was an interesting take to go this route with it, because it does speak very much to our society nowadays. Even if you think about reality television, how much of reality, quote-unquote reality television, have we heard of that's scripted?
Oh, God, yeah. And just, it's kind of interesting where, just when you start thinking about how this guy could really just, the darkness in him would drive him to do this.
Sure.
And this is a mercenary. This is a killer. He just 10 seconds ago slaughtered an innocent woman just because. He didn't need to do it. That wasn't in the script. That was him. I'm taking more operating outside the script. We're just getting into the character, because that's why they wanted him. They wanted someone who actually killed, and he just slaughtered a whole village as well right before that. So this is an evil, evil person, and I thought that again was kind of an interesting usage of him, and again more set up towards just the true evil of her agents.
I like when we flash back to Diana and the Joker. I love that he's walking around her telling jokes, but man, the artwork was great on this because he looks creepy. They do a really good job of making him seem sinister, which I think is really important in this era because it does shift the Joker at being this really scary villain. Because I grew up with Joker being very cartoony, and I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in the 70s watching the character, but I think why the character needed to evolve over time, and when you saw Scott Snyder do it most recently with what he did with, the whole face-off thing that he did and that type of stuff. You do need to, from era to era, take the Joker and redefine him for that era. I think things like Killing Joke and stuff like that did a really good job of redefining him again. I think in recent eras, Scott Snyder's done a really great job of redefining him again, taking him to the next level, reminding us that as Batman advances, you need to advance the Joker as well, so that way they seem like yin and yang, so to speak. So I think here in this era, it's great to see him telling jokes that some of them are actually funny, yet seem scary, creepy, and sinister right before Diana goes inside herself and we start seeing her have this ability to transport herself internally, consciously, to another place where she's connecting with gods, trying to find a way to release herself from this. And I really loved the flow of this sequence and how Diana got out of it in a way that really only she could.
Oh, God, yeah. This was one of those where, and I loved how they explained that she's talking to lesser gods. Mm-hmm. She's not talking to any of the big ones, because if she tried, there's no way she could pull it off. But someone like Pan, she could do this. And going to the god of chaos, I was like, that is such a really cool move, maneuver, but also just, it was neat because they showed that dance, and she's like, teach me your dance and all that, and they show that one full page of her just, dancing along with Pan, and just the fluidity and the grace that she has. Yes, this is a hardened warrior who could kick most people's butts, but there was just this cool groove to her, and I loved how afterwards she was still affected by it because she had the song of Pan being played in her head. And that was something that when I first read it, it threw me completely. Because here's Diana doing jokes. Here's Diana being witty. Here's Diana doing the exact something I wouldn't expect from her. And I was like, what? What's going on here? And I was kind of thrown off. But then when they explained it, you're like, oh, man, that's brilliant. Because, again, she's got Pan going through her head. There's no way she could just, turn it off and get out of it. She's got to play it through, play it, the whole 9 yards. And I thought that for me was a beautiful way to handle it. And a great, again, continuing just she didn't have the creepiness to her, but she did have a completely different look to her. And you could tell it wasn't just Diana in there anymore.
Yeah, and that part was really great. You know what I loved about that sequence, too, is the beauty of it. Diana's, one of the things we got to remember about that character, she's always been known as this great beauty, right? I think there's ways to acknowledge that and add a gracefulness to it that I think is very interesting. And it doesn't take away from her strength any, because you flash from that right to a strength sequence where, she comes out of it and she's joking around with the Joker. I really love when you show that she is a multifaceted personality and that she does have a sense of humor at times. It's not going to be a slapstick, but she can joke around because she is this dynamic, engaging person. I really love the character development of her throughout this whole thing. Really nice balance that gave her, I think, a very unique feel to the character. I do find that as I read this one, and it's one of the reasons why in the first episode of this I said it's timely. I read the storyline after, again, like for my second read-through, after seeing Batman v Superman. And seeing the new, actress playing Wonder Woman in that. And I really loved her portrayal of the character. I really felt it is very reminiscent of the Wonder Woman we're reading here. I thought she did a great job of bringing this character to the screen. And I really liked that as I was reading this, I'm like, oh yeah, she nailed that. And I think that's one of the reasons why universally, whether people loved or hated the movie or fell somewhere in the middle, people are usually applauding her as a character because I think this is what they nailed in that film, was bringing this character to life on the screen. For a character who often gets kind of a rap for not being really defined, I do think when the right writers have the character, they showcase pretty quickly that they do understand the character of Wonder Woman. You can make tweaks and things to the origin and backstory and stuff, but I think there's some basic tenets of Wonder Woman that are pretty needed. This storyline has all the tenets of Wonder Woman that I'm liking in the New 52, but also what I loved about her in the most recent film. And I really think that this is the kind of character template that you need for this character moving forward, because I really like this Wonder Woman a lot. Really like this kind of portrayal of her. This is what I want to see from the character.
Oh God, yeah. It's, again, you mentioned earlier how she's kind of the parts of Batman, parts of Superman. She's got the power of Superman, but the training and the fighting, style of Batman. And we've seen some detective work out of her. We've seen her as the warrior. We've seen her as the princess. We've seen her as the ambassador, the god of war, the goddess of peace. We've seen all these different, this styling and just who she is. And these are the kind of stuff that I want to see. This is the kind of stuff that I want to lose. And especially reading the past, seeing that these aren't new concepts, that these aren't, just something that the current writers are doing. This is something they've always done with her under the right people. Just has me, more excited for what we're going to get, what we could get out of Diana, what we could get out of a Wonder Woman title. It's kind of funny because you think back to some of the stuff we said about the Superman Wonder Woman title, how we really liked that exploration of not only just Wonder Woman and Superman, but Clark and Diana. And in her main title, back in the 80s and back in the day, they were doing stuff like that. So this is a character that I didn't read her back then, and I wish I had. And now I'm going back and I'm pulling these old stuff, and this is a story that's showing me, hey, there's some neat stuff out there.
Do you think her dance with Pan did throw her off a little bit or make her a little crazy? Because
big time.
Her handling was nuts. Because, really, I was thinking about the fact she has a bracelets on her arms. Why didn't she just use those when he pulled out the gun? I did recognize that there was somebody else in the room, so if there was a deflection of the bullets, that could possibly hit somebody else. But she jumps up and does that whole thing where the lights go out with the electricity and that whole bit with the fuse and the bomb blowing up. I really love the fact that Joker was just kind of like, what's going on here?
Yeah, she was completely out of, well, I don't want to say out of it, but it's one of those things where she's got the god of chaos going through her head, and there's no way you could be 100%. She's going to slip up. She's going to have her issues. And again, you have that heavy influence going on at the same time that she's not going to be completely herself.
Right, exactly. That was the part that really was cool. Talking about setup pieces, and this is something this storyline did really well. Because of the fact that it's a long-form story, you have sequences where you shift back to Cheetah. And she's still continuing the mission that she and Diana have been on. She's got the wizard in her sights, and she's ready to take action. This is the part where we see her get captured. And I really like how they never let you forget what's going on with any of the characters and any of the issues. Some characters take the forefront, some characters take the background, but they keep the story going. They keep reminding you of what's going on. It really is a very balanced character drama where there's no story part of this where you're like, oh, I forgot completely about them. You don't have a chance to, because they remind you and they give you a little update on what's going on real time. I like that intensity because it did give this story a sense of page turner. I just really wanted to keep turning the page to see what was happening next. I wanted to get, when they shifted to this, I wanted to get back to Artemis, Diana, everybody else. I wanted to know what was going on with everybody in the story because of how well they were developed, which I don't think you can do unless you have this kind of pacing.
Yeah, I know, and it was funny when the building blows up. We see Sazia come out, and again, it was one of those kind of moments where I was like, okay, she's still alive. We know Diana's alive. We know Joker's going to make it out of there, and great ending of the issue where Longo's like, hey, I won here. I'm right. Wonder Woman's dead. She's dead, and he gets in the car, and everything looks good. He's like, hey, I'm gonna run her over, and I just loved and it was going, because the whole time I'm thinking he's going to become the big bad, he's going to become the big evil, and he's not. Because once again the strategery plays out and she's got a bomb in the car, so she's like, hey, surprise, boom.
Yeah, and I really loved seeing that you think that's the end of Paulie Longo and the whole storyline there. So, I felt at that point, Sazia is going to be the focal point, right? The focal villain.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as that. And that's one of the great things about this story is just when you think you know what's going on, the story continues and it takes you to the whole next level, which leads us into issue number 98, where, again, we're seeing the storylines now of Artemis and Diana really converge. We still don't really know what's going on with Artemis's storyline, which is, we've already revealed it in this discussion, but as readers, the first time through, you don't really know that, like, Artemis has been all along fighting battles that have been setups, because her convergence now with Diana really is believable. She's like, Sazia, why haven't you taken care of this? It's and it really is. Diana's frustrated at this point because she's like, I've been doing my due diligence here. I've been fighting the big battles. I've been fighting the Joker. I've been fighting Mood. I've been fighting all these other people, conducting this investigation that has led everything to this point in time. Enough is enough. You did what you did in the contest, and a lot of that was mainly due to Diana's benevolence, because she was trying to be fair. Diana didn't know that she was played at the time. But everything is starting to, again, come to convergence, where she's starting to realize things aren't adding up. And I liked this issue in particular because it reminded us of the intelligence of Diana. Because we talk about important factors about this character, and it's oversimplifying to say that she's just like Batman, she's just like Superman. I don't mean it that way when we were saying the elements of the character. There's an intelligence to her as well. And I like the fact that she's an amalgamation of a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of qualities that set her uniquely apart because of it. This issue really does, when she's thinking things through and takes a leadership role with Artemis and just kind of like, enough's enough with you, right? I let you kind of, you won the contest. I accepted that. I'm letting you be Wonder Woman because you're supposed to be. That's all well and fine. But I'm still Diana, and this is my investigation. This is what I do. I am going to protect my city. I am going to protect its people. And quite frankly, right now, you stepping in at this moment with your assumptions are getting in the way of what I need to do. Enough is enough. I like that snaps that way because it's so natural and very well written with the character. And you only get that again if you're keeping your main character in the forefront, because I totally, through this entire storyline, was Team Diana. And I say that loving the character of Artemis, but really love the fact that our riding buddy in this one really is Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I thought one of the cool things I thought was that initial confrontation where Artemis reads Diana the Riot Act and she just takes it.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really cool just Diana moment where she's like, hey, one, she recognized that Artemis was upset because the Justice League wouldn't give her spot. But two, there is that level of, hey, it would be inappropriate for me to lash out at her, even though she's got it coming and she deserves it. And her, her buddy there is like, hey, that was wrong of her, and he's being the good friend, and he's the quote unquote sleazy private eye, and he's still being the good friend. But again, that was such a cool, beautiful picture where she just crushes that the filing cabinet. Just the way that was drawn, the way she looked, you see the massive power, but there still is the grace and beauty. I thought that was a really cool sequence. I love that one, visual.
Artemis going after Sazia, and Sazia knowing that Artemis would show up on the scene, I thought was really great. What I liked about it is Sazia made certain assumptions about the power levels of Artemis and the abilities of Artemis versus Diana. You don't really have any superpowers to speak of. I know that these are tools that are making you who you are, but Artemis is a warrior still. And I really love that in this sequence, even though Sazia set a trap, the trap was not enough to take down Artemis's skill set. That's something I really enjoyed about this story, and it goes to, I think, what you said right in the beginning of this discussion, this episode. Artemis, even though we knew certain things along the way, as things started to be revealed about setups with her, she never loses any steam, because in this moment, she is a warrior. And man, that warrior did a really great job of, saying, you're not going to take me down. She never gives up. She never quits. And she uses her skill set to dominate. I really loved the fact that throughout this storyline, I guess I was walking in anti-Artemis because I was so pro Diana, and I wanted Diana to win the contest, but I found myself throughout the storyline liking Artemis more and more as she became a more likable character, and we saw her be a victim of what this world was doing to her. Diana starting to realize it, and the two of them eventually kind of winding up on the same page at the end. I really loved the way that this flow happened with the characters. It was a very good storyline that I thought developed two very interesting characters. By the end of this arc, I was a huge Artemis fan, and I think that was something that they did really well without diminishing Diana at all.
Oh, God, yeah. And Artemis is a character that I wish they didn't have to kill off. I wish she could have survived this. I wish she could have been around later and more often and just been, kind of, I don't want to say a sidekick to Diana, but a partner. And I would like to see those two fight side by side because it was, they once Artemis realized what exactly Diana was going through and what Diana was doing and how she had to do things, differently in the world of man, there was an appreciation. I think with Diana as a mentor type of character, she could have become a really great superhero even without the extra add-ons, just be her, as we talk about her being a warrior, even without the bracelets, without the Hermes boots, she could have, still, you look at someone like Green Arrow and, Arsenal, where they're really just normal people who are shooting bows. Well, Artemis could have been a female version of that very easily. And on top of the bows, she is an Amazon and she is a warrior. So she could have been something really cool. And the one thing I really do want to say how much I loved, you mentioned it before, but the trap that was set for her. Because not only was it a great just trap to try to contain her, blow up the house, it really set her up well. Because here is Artemis, without any type of warrant, provocation, or any reasoning, assaulting her house. And the house, in the course of defending itself, blows up and she dies. So what Sal's going to do? Well, I'll be a nice person. I'll open up a foundation in honor of your brave, efforts. And it was just this great, it was a Lex Luthor worthy moment in my mind, because not only was she had this plan where she was going to take out the bad guy, but she was going to take out the hero, but she was going to then make herself look like this benevolent person that, I didn't intend for her to die. It just happened because, she was up against a completely automated defensive system that, happened to explode because of the nature of the fight.
Now, Artemis did appear again in a miniseries called Artemis Requiem. It was a 6-issue miniseries, and I don't really want to say too much about where that led the character, but this was not the last appearance of her.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've picked up some stuff. I've ordered, bought some digital stuff, but I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and read anything that happens after this because, one, I didn't want to, spoil anything in my head while I was talking about this, but two, I didn't have the time.
So Artemis Requiem for anybody,
I will get that.
Yeah, anybody who's a fan of Artemis in this series and maybe read this for the first time, the miniseries you're going to want to jump to after this is Artemis Requiem, if you want to follow her and what happens with her. It was a 6-issue miniseries that then kind of serves as an epilogue to this for her. So that's where you want to go next with this character. So it's an interesting, because this leads to then, and we'll go through it real quickly, to her encountering the first character that Artemis starts fighting. And this is where Diana starts to figure out what's really going on. So Diana comes back now knowing what had happened at this point and realizing that Artemis's anger towards her has been instigated. And some of it's by the people that are her agents. Some of it's by her mother. There's been certain areas where she's realizing, because of what happened to Artemis, that she's been played on a lot of different levels. And it is funny how seeing Artemis's story kind of triggered for Diana the reality of, I see what's happened to Artemis, but maybe I should be looking in a mirror. And I love how seeing Artemis's tale triggers for Diana the reality of, I got to go home because something's not right.
Yeah. Again, the epic battle between these two was awesome. But I love the fact that it wasn't just about them fighting. There was more of the story being told. There was more of the development, more of the twist and the turn and where it led to. And again, when I was reading through this, I didn't completely see this coming, and I didn't see just Hippolyta's, what she did and why she did it. It was again, levels on levels on levels. This was a great story with a lot of twists and turns, and I was like, dang, this is awesome.
Case in point, though, in issue 99, when it kicks off and she's flying back to Themyscira, Cersei pops up right away. And to your point about how there's a lot of things you don't see coming in this storyline, I'm like, wow, now is Cersei Hippolyta or is Cersei controlling Hippolyta? What's going on there? Because Cersei appeared so quickly there, I thought that she had a bigger role on what was going on in Themyscira. I love how that plays out later, where these are all clues that are being laid out for Diana. And Diana later catches on to these clues, and it helps her to figure out what's really been going on to her world since the beginning of this story, and before, perhaps even, with this. And I really liked how everything kind of loops back around, and you start to see, oh, there's been things in play here. Like, this really isn't the first time we've seen Cersei in this arc. We've seen her almost every issue of this arc. And I really like how that was done in this storyline. There was a lot of thought in laying seeds. And this Cersei thing seems very quick, but it was just a seed that in many ways played into a sleight of hand, so to speak. Because if Cersei's there, you're not thinking that she's back actually in the room with Diana's friend. I loved that. It was really great.
As I said, I've been thinking Cersei was Hippolyta. And then especially Diana's going to Paradise Island. Cersei shows up, and then she's just gone. Where'd she go? And then when they show Diana on the island with Hippolyta, I was like, oh my God, it's got to be definitely her. Completely 100% did not see it as her friend, because all these hospital scenes that they were doing, I honestly thought, I don't want to say filler story because that would diminish it. I kind of took it as the additional background story of Diana. And that was something that I really liked about this. We weren't just getting Wonder Woman. We were getting Diana, and we were getting Diana's friends, and we were getting Diana's interaction. I never once even remotely thought any of these people would have anything to do with the supernatural other than they were Diana's friends. And just the way this was playing out with her one friend who's paralyzed, and where she's now starting to get feeling in the legs and all this stuff that's going on, and all this was this really cool hospital storytelling moments. I read through, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I wonder what's going on there. And especially when they kind of threw out the possibility that Diana maybe is healing them somehow. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is some power that I don't know about. So this whole stuff, I thought this was a cool story, but I thought it was like, that little bit of extra that you get in a comic story sometimes, not the part of the main story. I was not remotely thinking any of these people would be Cersei. I was just like, again, great, beautiful swerve.
The Hippolyta storyline was great because this is where the big reveal happens. Hippolyta saw a vision. She set this whole thing up to protect her daughter. We already have Hippolyta as being a deceptive person, being a part of this storyline. It's a huge part of this arc with what we saw earlier. So this deception's totally there. Diana gets the verification that her dad is not who she was worried that it was. She is, in fact, the Gumby of the DC universe. And I don't know that I would find that much more confidence building, but...
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. It is a weird origin with the clay and the living clay and all that. And I like how the modern verse, it was a bruise to disguise who her father actually is. I like that kind of story better, where it's not the actual way it is. But again, I'm not going to knock it because, it does explain a lot about her. It does explain the power levels. It does explain all that. So it is a neat story origin, but I do like the fact that I like the daughter of Zeus story better, and I think I probably would have liked her to be Heracles' daughter. I think that would have been kind of neat as well.
I think it worked on this level, though, to show that either way that went, that the trust has been broken because she wondered how much her mother had lied to her. Like, to what level had she lied to her? And that really made a lot of sense with where this storyline was. So I really quite enjoyed Diana questioning this, no matter how it played out, because it just made a lot of sense.
Oh God, yeah. And again, we talk about just the deception and all that, so it's kind of a neat thing to further just kind of further just develop that. And it was funny because during those sequences when Hippolyta's, just wearing rags and she's outside the statue of her sister, part of me still was thinking, oh, okay, these are crocodile tears. Part of me was still thinking, oh, okay, this is faking. And I was still thinking Cersei throughout all this. I was still thinking, part of my head was still wrapped on that this wasn't real. And I liked how Diana was taking that strong stance to her, and I'm half expecting her, when I was reading this, I was half expecting her to say, really, where's my mother? And I was waiting for the moment where she goes, where's my mother at? And just that final confrontation between her and Cersei. I was like, I was just anticipating that to happen. And, again, completely did not see who she actually was.
The quest for power, a lot of times, and it is something in magic, is a very common story where the more power you get, the more it corrupts you. And there's more of a quest for more power and greater power. We're to the point where he's like, you're no longer important to me. What is important is my quest for power, and I'm willing to, to cross lines and to change because of that. He's becoming a Lord High Daemon, and that's really important to him. And as he's looking down and showing that he has Cheetah there, and he's going to train her. I love it. She's got the cat collar with the bell on it. It really shows that this has been kicked up a notch. He has twisted and become, you see him morph again and again into this larger, more powerful creature that basically is willing to sacrifice the both of them in his quest for power. This is really the end game, because now we've crafted this villain that can easily make mincemeat of Cheetah, who we know to be a foil for Wonder Woman. And you need this person in play because in the end game, you need the big battle. Who is it going to be that's going to be powerful enough that Artemis and Diana can face and have a lot of trouble with? And this is setting up that whole play in a character that I never saw being the one that would be it.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it was when he demonized, when all that happened and he started that transformation, I was like, oh, okay. Wow. Because the whole time, I was thinking originally it was going to be his boss. I was originally then thinking when the boss got blown up, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have, he's going to jump sides and he's going to go over to Saziage. He's going to do that. And I was thinking she was going to be the big bad. I never still, up until the point when he started demon upping, that's when you're like, oh, wow, didn't see that coming. Okay. And especially because the funny moments when the female reporter shows up, they kind of had that bow chicka wow wow moment going on, and he's like, oh no, we're not doing that. And it was just, again, really great just story building. And then you go from that moment of this massive demon there to Artemis questioning, with arrows that are slowly proceeding closer to the guy's head, trying to get information where he's at. And great setup by Wizard once again, because he's got Artemis thinking, oh yeah, I'm torturing this guy, or I'm questioning, interrogating this guy. But in reality, this guy is giving up all the information that they want. They want her at that location. They want her, going there. They want, this is the giant trap set up for Artemis. I thought that, again, trap on trap on trap, swerve with another swerve right behind it. I was like, man, that's cool.
I love that this comes from, too, the information that she had from her former handlers about his connections to the White Magician. So the White Magician, again, I put this in play, Randolph, his history, I like her intelligence. She's seeking out, using the information, the big bad behind this whole thing, recognizing this is all connected, that she's been used along the way. So she's not going to let that go because she's legit. She is there for the purpose of making the world a better place. She has her ideas on how she's going to do that, and she's not going to stop on her quest. The brilliant part was when he's going, behind you. and it really did play out so well. I loved the art sequence where he's like, thank you very much. I really loved the visual, how you took this guy who was almost cowering, and he sets himself up, and basically that's where we see the reveal as the readers. I love the stuff that we know as readers that nobody else does.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. And again, it's it shows her again it shows her naivety, but it doesn't show. But it's not, you don't walk away thinking she's an idiot. And I thought that for me was a great balance on this, how you actually, because she worked for she was had to throw down here, she had to take out a couple of demons, she was doing all types of beat downs on people to get this information. It wasn't just handed to her, so naturally you would think, okay, she's following the clues, she's getting the information, and then you get that one little panel, that little sly devilish look on the guy's face, like, oh, she's walking into a trap and it's not going to be good.
I love the debate at the end with Diana and Hippolyta, where Hippolyta's like, basically thinking that now that Diana knows the truth, she's just going to stay there and stay safe. And Diana's like, did you, never know me? And it really shows how much Diana's more like her aunt than her mother. In the sense that she's like, I'm not going to stay here and hide. Do you not know me? I really am, forget the costume. And that's one of the things that I really loved about this story. It's not about the costume you wear. You referenced that great Captain America story where he was dressed in that as the captain, which eventually became the outfit for the U.S. agent when those two switched places. The great part about that storyline there was also, it's not the clothes that make the person. It's who they are, their integrity, what they bring to the table as a person. You can put any outfit you want on her. She's Wonder Woman. She is Wonder Woman as we know her. You can't replace her with somebody else. They may be called Wonder Woman, but they will never be the same Wonder Woman. That was something that I think all of these storylines that kind of replaced the hero, quote unquote, didn't accomplish. Really, I should say, they really accomplished well this idea that you can put other people in that role. You may even really like the other people in that role, but there is something uniquely special about the strength of character and what the people bring to the table that are actually in that role. Like Batman, we've seen Batman replaced a number of times now with, Jean Paul Valley, Dick Grayson a couple of times, and when you've seen those replacements come in to play, and even Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis and things like that, to varying degrees, there's ones where you're like, oh, I really like following that character, right? But in the end, when Bruce throws back on the costume, there's something special about it, right?
Yeah, you always still cheer for it.
Same thing with Superman. I loved the Return of Superman storyline where we had the multiple Superman, and I was rooting for which ones I thought would actually turn out to be either Superman or some part of Superman. And I had my own feelings that at one point in time, I was thinking that each of them had a little part of Superman in them, and only together, like Voltron, they would make actual Superman, not knowing that the real Superman was actually somewhere else. I really liked the way that those storylines converged. Because when Clark came back, it was like, dun-da-da, and, to your point, how you always refer to that, there's something special about that. Same thing happens here with Diana. I mean, I just really loved seeing the bit on the island, seeing her get ready to go back into battle, as we head into the landmark issue 100. And it really is a landmark because this was 100 issues of Volume 2 of this series. The series had been relaunched with the George Perez run and hit issue 100. Along the line of this run, they eventually did go back to the original numbering. I really loved that this wound up being 100 issues of a series that I read quite a few of these. I did not collect every single issue of the 100 of Wonder Woman, but I read quite a bit of this. It was probably my lengthiest run of, well, not probably, it was my lengthiest run of Wonder Woman to date because I had only read very broken of issues of her before this series kicked off. Really found myself drawn to the character quite a bit more in this run. This run in particular was one where, issue 100 is the fall of an Amazon. A very interesting storyline because Diana's flying back now, and shows up at the aftermath of what happened with the battle with the White Magician, where she realizes, oh my gosh, what I thought was going on here is actually gone to a whole different level. She's racing against time because she knows Artemis is in the spot that she should have been in. And Artemis is ultimately going to face off with Randolph, will potentially die. Here's the thing, and this is the truth of this storyline, there's no other way for this story to have gone. because Diana never would have been in that role. The whole storyline, the thing about fate when you look towards the future, it only happens because this is the way it was intended to be. Artemis was always intended to win the contest. Hippolyta was intended to create the contest. These events were something that Diana could never have stopped. Her mother really did see a vision of the future, and it always was intended to be Artemis, not Diana.
Yeah, but I still feel bad.
Oh, I do too.
And you still feel bad, and you still sit there say it's one of those weird things where I understand why she did it, but you can't agree with it. You got to say, man, that's just wrong, because this was a complete setup for, because even the last issue, Hippolyta saying, hey, I knew the outcast Amazons would be eager to do this. I knew they would, and I even manipulated the judging to make sure they would win. And she really just completely set up Artemis to die. Now, the whole thing about fates and this and that, if that had been Diana from the beginning, if Hippolyta hadn't created this whole contest, and if Diana had been involved with this from the very beginning, would she have died? Would this have happened? Would she have been able to would she have prevented this from escalating to the level it did actually escalate? I don't know.
I think it had to. It was fate. Now, wait, don't get me wrong. I'm agreeing with you. What Hippolyta did was despicable. But the way this storyline had to play out, the vision that Hippolyta saw was actually a vision that was always intended by fate to have Hippolyta make it play out. Hippolyta was the key evil player in all this that caused everything to happen. I don't think the Wonder Woman that was supposed to fall was ever Diana. It was always meant to be Artemis.
Well, that's it, because that was the thing I'm wondering. When Hippolyta actually saw the initial vision, did she see Diana or did she see Artemis?
Or did she just see that it was the Wonder Woman?
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
That again, because when I read it through, I took it she saw Diana falls, so she put somebody else in the place.
Well, remember, it's a vision, though. So what did she see in the vision? Did she see a dead Wonder Woman in a costume and not be able to identify the actual face of the person? There's all kinds of different ways a vision can play out. And you're right, to your point, we don't know. Because she said the Wonder Woman. She never said, I saw Diana fall. I saw the Wonder Woman fall. So does it mean that she saw Diana die? Was she ever able to identify who Wonder Woman was? Or just that it was the Wonder Woman?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Again, when I initially read it, I was thinking she saw Diana fall. But again, to your point, she never does say, I saw you fall. She always does say, I saw the Wonder Woman fall. I saw the Wonder Woman die, so I made sure you wouldn't be Wonder Woman.
Right. So
maybe she didn't have the details. But again, it was one of those things where I was just like, man, it's just, I feel bad. Because especially when we get this initial sequence with Artemis fighting, and I loved how they showed how much time has traveled in their fight based on the number of arrows in him. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 arrows in him already in this course, in this one still fight where they're going at it. And again, it shows her as a warrior. It shows her fighting. It shows her throwing down. And he, of course, is just not even slowing down with 15 arrows in him. And I thought that, again, the showing Diana, one quick panel to this, and then back to Diana was a great just indicator on how serious and how nasty this is getting.
So you're mentioning the sequence with Diana now that we've fished over to that, and I loved the reveal of Cersei and how Diana basically at this point is noticing so many clues around her of things that she's seen all along, because it's brought up that Cersei is making moves that don't show her craftiness and intelligence, and that doesn't make any sense, because Cersei is the one. Look at everything that Cersei was able to pull off with the Amazons in the past, and we saw that in previous issues. How can Cersei be that brilliant, but then seemingly pop up, attack Diana with no plan, rhyme, or reason to it? It doesn't make any sense. So then the math starts to happen. We get to see this part where Cersei has put up a mask where her role of embedding herself into Diana's life was probably intended originally to attack Diana, but in the end she actually, in her own way, became too good at wearing the mask that she was. She actually started to become this person, actually started to care about the people around her. I love that twist because you don't see that happen very often. And I thought it was an interesting storytelling method where Diana's like, listen, you've become this person, and I get it, but you need to realize right now with everything that's happening around us who you are, because you are the one person that can help me against the insurmountable odds that I'm fighting. You're the only one that can. So you need to tap into yourself, realize who you really are, and realize that we are your friends, and do something to help us. And I really loved that justification. I thought it was an interesting storytelling because it's very advanced and deep. Because usually that's reserved for her sinisterly revealing, I'm Cersei and I'm the big bad. In this case, nothing's that simple. Cersei wasn't. She had taken on this role, actually forgotten who she really was, and now has to come to the realization, wait a minute, I am Cersei. I can help these people who I've grown to love and care for. So what do I do in this point? I loved this twist. Talk about another great twist in this storyline that I think adds just this sense of intelligence and depth. The writing of this era was really, really strong on this book because there's so many swerves in this that were filled with a reason behind them and clues leading up to them that you just kind of go, oh my gosh, and now they're doing this.
I know. Oh God, I love this. Again, it was just the portrayal on just the concept and the idea behind it. Didn't completely see it coming. And then as Diana's throwing it out there, she's like, hey, that's crazy. I'm a lawyer, not a sorceress. And she completely is like, I'm your friend. And then I loved how Diana just started hitting her with the rapid fire. What's the name of your third grade teacher? What was the color of the porch when you were 12? What do your cousins look like? And just hit her with these details that she wouldn't have crafted. When Cersei first put on this disguise, she had kind of an open, cover story, a backstory. Didn't go into any depth to it, but had just the laid out, and even gave herself kind of an organized crime family background, so she didn't feel like, so people wouldn't press and push into her, her past, and wouldn't ask her because she had a troubled past, because things were difficult. People would let it go, and that was how she played it out. It's funny. I want to go back through and read these old issues and see if there were any clues in the previous issues, in the previous runs. When this character was first introduced, I want to see if they laid out any clues or if this was a complete swerve out of left field. Because for us, reading this story, this was a complete swerve. But I wonder, anybody who's done a long time reading of this story arc, if this was a swerve for them as well. Because if this was a complete 100% swerve where previous readers wouldn't have known it, bravo, because this was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, because I hadn't at the time been reading this before this contest story. I knew the story was coming, so I started reading the contest. And I read these as individual issues as they were coming out, the contest itself, into Fall of the Amazon. I had not been reading before this, though, so I don't know that answer. I have since read the issues, but I honestly, it's been so long since I've read the issues that led up to this, I don't remember. It's a cool storyline, and to your point, I don't know if this was a swerve or not, but it was great for a reader who hadn't been reading this before. So Randolph and Diana, Diana gets transported to this place because of the fact that Cersei's powers reawaken, and she's there with Artemis, who's about ready to be killed, and she goes right into battle. And when she goes into battle, it's not just Randolph that she has to deal with, but also Cheetah and Cassandra Arnold, who have been transported into demon-like entities as well. And this battle turns into something where it really does require the powers of more than two Wonder Woman in order to pull it off. I liked how this story twisted here, because there was a reason for Artemis and Diana to buddy up, like so often happens between two adversarial heroes that show up with each other. And you mentioned the great combat sequence between the two of them. I loved that you get to see Artemis, even though she's been beaten down, continue to keep fighting. She keeps getting up. She keeps using arrows. She keeps using her warrior skill set. Even when she's got arrows through her, she keeps fighting. And that's something that I really loved. Her fall didn't take anything away from her. If anything, you kept rallying for her to, not die, to not go where this story went. You wanted to see her somehow overcome and survive this whole battle. That was something that I really loved about this story, was she was the character who was Diana's adversary in the beginning and was taking away Diana's role. And by the end of it, Artemis had developed her own role, where you cared about her as a character. I wanted to read more of her after this. That, I think, is a well-done story, whether you kill the character or not, when you want to read more of a character that you've been following in the storyline. And it really was, this battle was the one that cinched it for me. I'm like, oh, Artemis is awesome. And look at her. She doesn't have the powers that Diana has, but she's super strong. And look at her keep fighting. There's something about the underdog and seeing the underdog rally that you really quite like. Diana was an underdog in this as well. And I think neither character lost anything in this storyline because of the way it worked. But I did love the way the battle led to there being a need for the both of them. Artemis's weaponry, such as her gauntlet, playing such a pivotal role in this, I thought was brilliant.
Oh God, yeah, and it was funny because as this first time reading through this, I didn't know that Artemis dies. I didn't know if she, so I'm reading this and you're seeing them work together. You're seeing them both have the same thought process where they're too strong. What's going to, and they're both getting physically and mentally beat down and they're still pushing through and they're trying to work together. They're trying to do tag team and combos. And I'm reading this thinking, man, they could in seriousness have Artemis turn over the mantle back to Diana, then she returns to, Themyscira, and she kind of, gets a position of power because of what Hippolyta did. And I'm thinking all these different stuff where Artemis could live, and then I'm thinking, are they going to do that? Then I'm thinking, are they going to kill her off? And throughout this whole battle, I kept going back and forth with, is she going to live? Is she going to die? And I think when you get in your head where there's a chance the hero could actually die, it always escalates things. It always makes things seem that more just gripping as you're reading, and especially the way these, again, non-traditional panels going through action sequences where you could really just hear and feel the thumps and the whams and the various, just the chaos that is combat, done so well with this. But, oh God, throughout all of this, I still wish she would have survived this because, again, there could have been a lot more cooler stories they could have done with Artemis.
One of the things that I thought was really great is the handling of Cersei. Because of the fact that she'd become so human and really adopted that role, her memories were mixed with the human memories. So she wasn't quite able to manifest her magic the way that she normally would to the power set. And she was only able to take the other two sub-partners of the White Magician out of the game. So it left Diana to go one-on-one with this big, powerful demon that neither of them seemed to be able to handle on their own. Which led to, again, like I said, her pulling on that gauntlet and, really just seeing Artemis go, listen, this is what you need to do. It was a team effort because it wasn't for Artemis saying, here, wear this. This is the only way. This will magnify your already powerful strength. Look what it did for me. We know what it'll do for you. You got to go to battle and make this happen. I really loved the way that this all played out. I love that it led to this final battle where the demon was destroyed. The ending was unique to me because the ending was Artemis dying, and that was it. It was the ending of this arc, the death of Artemis. There was no epilogue. I mean, it just ended very clean and left you going, from a writer handing off the book to another writer, I don't know if this was the writer's choice or not, or, what happened behind the scenes on this one. But this is a real classy way to leave your fans going, I want to read next issue, because I don't know what else you can say at the end of this one, right? Artemis' eyes are closed. Diana's left there crying at the death of Artemis. You want to know what happens next. I mean, there's no other way. In a monthly serialized medium, this really is probably one of the classiest ways to hand off a series to another writer in the way this was done. And I don't know I can't tell you behind the scenes what happened with this one, but as far as really teasing your fans to keep reading the book, this writer did an amazing job of doing that because I did read I didn't like Byrne's run as much. I enjoyed Byrne's run, and I'm not saying this to throw John Byrne under the bus. I don't mean it that way. This run was a pinnacle run for me. It's one of my favorites. I enjoyed John Byrne's run. I will admit that there was a point where I jumped off because it didn't grab me the way that this did. I enjoyed it. I wanted to read some epilogue issues afterwards and enjoy what was happening there. But this run was a special sort of run, and really was an issue of, after this, my finances were always the issue at this age for me. I didn't have enough money to be able to read as many books as I wanted. So I remember enjoying Byrne's run, but I had to jump off because I couldn't afford to keep reading it. And being glad that I got to enjoy this storyline because, the ending of this one was huge and really does hold up because there was so much of it I forgot up until I started doing the rereading for this. And man, was this a storyline. First of all, I'm glad we did on the show. These are issues that a ton of depth to them. I forgot how dense they were with storytelling because there's a lot of content in here, a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition, and a lot of events happening in every single issue of this storyline that all converge to an immense payoff at the end. I thought this was a really well-handled story. Very epic.
Oh, God, yeah. And a gripping, just holy crud moment with the death because it wasn't... She did not have a clean and painless death. You could see just the blood. You can see the carnage, the destruction of her uniform. There was a lot of pieces that got ripped and shredded on her. That it's battle damage, battle scarring, and just it was like kind of one of those wow kind of moments. Especially, I love the ending where. She's talking, Diana is just talking about, she will tell them how you fought to the end, how you were a true warrior, and I was proud to be at your side. Look, Artemis, you can see the Elysian fields. All the warriors of all the ages are raising their shields to greet you. And I was like, man, again, it's just that kind of that final moments of death where you're just sitting there and you see the grieving Diana and the funeral service is going to be an epic event of, honoring, this fallen warrior. And, part of me really wanted to read that. Part of me wanted to see the funeral. Part of me wanted to see that kind of stuff. And that was just, again, it shows just how much... within these 10 issues, I really got into these characters. I really got into this universe.
Yeah, it really is something where Wonder Woman is one of, and I'm so glad that through this podcast you've gotten to appreciate the character because you referenced many times about how she was a character that I think, we were both kids growing up and she was a female character. You tended to identify more with male characters, and Wonder Woman was the character that was quote unquote written for female comic fans, right? Or attached to a female audience. Man, when you start reading this character though, she is very similar to how there's female fans who like Batman and Superman. There's female fans who love Wonder Woman. There's male fans, and I totally get it. I'm one of them. That adores this character and everything that she brings to the table. And I'm so glad that I was lucky enough to hit runs like the George Perez run that really made me go, oh, wait, I thought I knew? Because I really did pick up that George Perez run for the Perez artwork. I'm like, I love his artwork, so I'm going to pick this up and check it out. Wonder Woman's not usually that character that I would jump to. Oh, my gosh. My understanding of what is so cool about Wonder Woman was so limited until I started reading when this era, and getting to enjoy this type of storyline. To this day, I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. We reference the Trinity a lot on the podcast, and how much she really is an equal member of the Trinity. It isn't because of the longevity of the character. It's because she really is a very well-crafted character. And is so unique and interesting from Batman and Superman that she really deserves that place up there. And I love that she is a character that, very similar to Batman and Superman, is malleable. She can be updated with the times as long as you remember the core qualities that make her stand apart. And this is one of those storylines that really does that, and is pretty timeless. There's very few storylines in comics that are timeless. This one holds up. I mean, holds up really well.
Oh, God, yeah. And, again, it's funny, you mentioned how with the Trinity and her, this Wonder Woman, this Diana right here, this is a member of the Trinity. This one is, this is the kind of character that you can say, yes, she stands toe-to-toe with Bruce and Clark, and the current stuff the current Diana we have, she's also Trinity, stands up toe to toe with everybody, and it's one of those things where she's a character that even as we're doing the podcast, she sometimes has slipped through the cracks on me and not completely gone noticed by me because I'm focused on all these other stuff going on. But lately, as the more I read about her, the more I learn about her, the more eras of her that I've actually experienced, I see throughout time she's always been this epic character. She's always been the Trinity, and it's we got to recognize, and I'm glad we are on this episode.
I would love a Wonder Woman video game, and I think of for fans of played God of War. I've referenced this on the show once before. How when I play God of War, I love that game. I love the series. I love the story. I love the mechanics because it just plays really smooth. I've always thought that engine would make just a tremendous Wonder Woman game, obviously because of the links to the gods, but here's the way I look at that game. It doesn't have to be set like God of War is. I don't mean it that way. I love the mechanics, and I just think that Kratos is a character who mechanically plays like Wonder Woman should. I imagine, the opening part of any really good video game is kind of your intro into the mechanics of the game. Imagine if it was the contest, where you're learning how to play the game by going through the contest.
Yeah.
And along the way, you're learning how to fight as Diana, and then eventually you start introducing mechanics that will be the lasso mechanics and will be the sword mechanics, because you want to use all the weapons and the bracelets, like learning how to use the bracelets as a defensive piece, learning how to fly in the game. These are all things, as she leaves Themyscira. These are all things that would make really a great Wonder Woman game and kind of set it apart. And I think people would get really into, if it's well crafted like that, where the storyline is just big and epic, the combat and the violence that you can do with Wonder Woman, she naturally lends herself to that. And the balance of the storytelling that you get with Wonder Woman, she'd just be a great character to have in a game. I've been a fan of the Rocksteady games from Batman that have come out recently. I would love to see them. That doesn't have to be Rocksteady. It can be anybody. I'd love to see a studio really tackle a great Wonder Woman game, looking at the God of War series of games as their template for it, just because I think it's a really strong style that would work for Wonder Woman. It would kind of set her apart from those Batman games that have been great.
Could actually...
Go ahead.
With the current movie universe, we could actually get something like that. Because you think about it, that's the movie universe is one of the things that's really driven the video games, as opposed to the comic books driving it. Because the really great Batman came out after the Nolan Batmans. The really, the Superman came out after that. The Superman Returns, and I think this Batman versus Superman has got people thinking, hey, let's do something here. And, with her getting her own movie, who knows? Maybe we could get something like that. I don't know.
I do hope they would go the route, though. The Rocksteady Batman games that I'm talking about, one of the things that was great about them is, I think the movies, more than the comics even, got studios interested, but the story was completely independent of both the movies and the comics. It's an original story. And it's really its own universe that it takes place in. A lot more reminiscent of the comics than necessarily the films, although you can really argue that it does reach both audiences without being beholden to one or the other. I would love to see an original Wonder Woman game that feels comfortable for the movie-going audience, and the comic audience isn't beholden to either. So that way it has the freedom to say, we're going to tell our own great Wonder Woman story and maybe become a series of multiple games, similar to how the Batman series did, because it was a series of 4 games. One of them was not done by Rocksteady, so it was really a Rocksteady trilogy. But I would love to see Wonder Woman go through that as well, because I just think that she is a character that would be fun to play in a video game. And to your point, the movies do lend themselves to, hey, she's pretty universally applauded as being an awesome character in these movies. This is a great time to get that character in a video game. And I do think it would touch a larger audience. I want to play it. I really want to play it. And this reading this storyline has gotten me so Wonder Woman happy that I love the fact that there's a digital Wonder Woman series going on right now. I love the fact that we just read this. There's classic stories. I love the new 52 version of her. Her in the movie was great. Like, this is a character I just want to see more of because she's being handled so well in so many different areas right now. This really is the time for this character to step forward in the forefront. Tomb Raider is a game right now that has kind of had a resurgence. They've reimagined it for today. And the game series is doing gangbusters because of the quality of it. So I would love to see the same thing happen with Wonder Woman. This is a time to bring a strong female character into video games, the same way that she's being brought into other media. I just would love to see this character be one that isn't the backseat character of the Trinity. Well, it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. No, I want to see Wonder Woman be up there. They're sitting in the front seat of the car. She belongs up there, and I want to see her in the driver's seat. And a video game is the next logical progression for her, just because of this. Because this storyline. I'd love to be a side story in the video game. I would love to play Challenge of Artemis as a downloadable piece or as a side story in the game. You know, where it's an open world game where depending on where you're at in the game, you get to play certain great Wonder Woman stories. And this would be great to, get used to her as Wonder Woman, but then have the story take a twist where now she has to give up the mantle and you play this whole storyline. I would love to play it if that actually lends itself. Great storyline. I mean, it really was great. And I'm glad that we finally got to do this on the show because we've really been talking about this since the podcast started as being something at some point we wanted to do. And I guess I forgot how many issues were really involved in this storyline. But I'm so glad that we got to do this one and that you enjoyed it as much as I did because I never, I make assumptions when I recommend a story arc for the show that you're going to enjoy it the way that I do. That's really an unfair thing to do because as we were talking through this, I think you keyed on to unique things that you liked and a unique perspective on how you approach this storyline that wouldn't match mine just because of your own experiences with the character. And I'm really glad that you got as much value out of this storyline as I do. And it's kind of fitting that we do this one while you're in Italy. Or the last part of it, I should say, while you're in Italy.
Yeah, man. I tell you, this is... We've tried once before and we couldn't, and then we're dealing with internet issues while we're recording this. It's throughout the thing. But I'm glad we actually were able to sit down and finish our conversation on this because this is one of those stories now that it's listed in my in my head it's that story now that's one of those that I will always refer back to. I will reread this story. I will look, and if they ever were to reprint this and give it the hardcover or various omnibus or any type of format they would do, I would get this again. Because right now I have it on digital. And it's easy reading, yes, but part of me would like to get, a nice oversized of this because this wasn't just cool story. This was some beautiful artwork that I was actually surprised at how much I really enjoyed the artwork. Because a lot of times when we go back through and we read the older stuff, I'm not as excited as I am about the current stuff because different techniques, and I like the look of the modern comics. But going back to this one, man, this was story-wise wonderful twist turns and whatnot, but also just absolutely beautiful, beautiful book.
Isn't it a tragedy that this one's out of print? Really hard to find in print? I'm glad that we were able to pull it up so easily digitally, and to be able to do this particular run and be able. Because here's the thing, we didn't want to do this one without people being able to access it. So I'm glad that people were able to either go back to their paper issues if they had them, get them from the comic shop, or use their trades or seek out trades if they wanted to join us that way with it. But I'm glad that if you'd never read this story before, we were at least able to easily obtain it via Comixology. I think it's a tragedy this storyline is not in print. this storyline really should be continually in print because of how good it is.
Oh, God, yeah.
So I'm glad we got to do this.
Hopefully with the resurgence of Wonder Woman, we can get this back out there.
Yeah, Longbow Hunters went through this same problem for a while, where it was hard to get that storyline, and that was another tragedy. So you never want these great comic storylines to fall through the cracks and get out of the place. And I'm glad, it's one of the things I'm really glad of digitally, is the fact that we're able to get some of these. But there is still something about having this in paper and looking at it that way. I think there's a different experience. I love reading comics digitally, but I also love reading them in paper. I think it's a very different experience when you do both. And I think there's a place for both, and I'm glad that we have both opportunities. I like being spoiled like that as a fan, and there's certain storylines I like owning in both versions. To your point, you were just saying, hey, I'd like to buy this one that way, even though I own it digitally. I would love a great collected version of this whole arc, because that's never been done, where they've collected the whole thing together. In an oversized like omnibus or something like that, really put the whole thing together. I would buy that in an instant.
Oh God, yeah, big time.
All right, well, Jim, I know it's really late for you, and I want to thank you because the hour difference over there. We started this at almost 11:30 Italy time in the evening, and we had to do this so that basically I could get home from work and rush home early so I could meet you, so you could stay up really late to do this with me. And
6 hours, 6 hours time difference.
Right. But I really appreciate you doing this, because this is always a fun little novelty to be able to record overseas like this, and kind of a special way to wrap this up, because we really intended this to be kind of the ending point of our 10th anniversary celebration. We wanted to do what we've done traditionally and do some form of big storyline as a part of a major anniversary of Raging Bullets. We've always done that historically, where we've looked at some of our bigger episodes and gone, this is a landmark. We really should mark it by doing something big. And you referenced this actually when we were talking about what we should do. At some point in passing, you mentioned doing something big and doing a big storyline. And that was what led us to the insanity of doing issues 90 to 100 with issue 0 thrown in at a double sizer. And I'm so glad we did this one. It was well worth reading this one again, and thank you for the suggestion. But as always, to kind of cap this off, I am so thrilled that we've been for well over a decade, because we're well into our 11th year. Glad to continue doing this podcast with you, and can't wait to see. We got Rebirth on the horizon, dude. It only gets better from here.
Oh God, yeah, man! I tell you, we've got Rebirth. We've got a Justice League movie eventually in a couple years. We've got a Wonder Woman movie and some more Batman movies. Some TV shows that are just doing some awesome stuff. This is looking forward to being a really good time to be a DC fan. I'm very excited to do the show, very excited to keep reading and whatnot.
And the direct to animation, and to your point, with all of those different places, the nice part is, like, for example, people that didn't like Batman v Superman, the part where we're spoiled now is, okay, fine, that's not your cup of tea. There's the great direct to animation stuff. There's the great TV series that are out there. As a DC fan, there's a plethora of opportunities to really access these characters through multimedia. We are really lucky right now, as comic fans in general, take DC out of it, with the amount of great content out there. If you don't like something, some version of something, there's so much more of it out there to access that I love that so much rich media is being pulled from these things that we love. I can't wait for more. So it's good stuff. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your trip, buddy, and thanks for joining us for this one.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you a part of our show. Jim's in Italy right now, but we will have voicemails back on our next episode. Sponsoring this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I mentioned earlier in the episode, don't forget to check out the DC collectibles, such as the Batman black and white statue, the Robin one by Frank Quitely, regularly $80, 32% off, only $54.40. over at InStockTrades.com. They always have the deals of the week. And I do particularly want to shout out the Wonder Woman by Mike Deodato trade paperback. That's 50% off, only $12.49. Be sure to check out every week their deals of the week because they always have 50% off deals there, and it's a great way to save some money on some great comics. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. I want to remind everyone about RagingBullets.com. It's our show website. We have a Twitter link there so that we can find out when our next episode's being released. We also have a Facebook fan page. More importantly, though, there's a Facebook group community. We love connecting with you and interacting with you and getting your feedback. The community, though, one of the great things about it is it kind of morphed into its own thing, and that's a testament to the quality of the people there. They own that place, and I love the fact that when I go in there now, I feel like I'm a visitor, which seems like a strange thing to say when it started off as their podcast Facebook group, but I think it says a lot about the quality of the people there, though, that people have been drawn into it. There are people in there who listen to this show. There are people who don't listen to the show, and there's people who fall somewhere in the middle. And I quite like that, actually. I like that the group has kind of grown beyond what its original intention was. And I do want to thank the people that are there. If you've never joined a Facebook group community before, I can't encourage you enough to join this one just because it's top quality people. It's always safe and fun. Sure, lively debates go on there, but people are always respectful. And I genuinely like everybody there and consider them friends. I encourage you to sign up for it. And if you have friends who are comic fans, but they're not necessarily listeners of our podcast, invite them to join because it's just a great community. So hats off to the rest of you for kind of kicking that off and taking it to a new direction. We are also on Google+. I have a PSN account on my PlayStation. You're more than welcome to connect with me there. I really like interacting with all of you. I'm taking classes right now. I'm taking 2 classes at a time for my principal licensure. So my free time is kind of shrunk compared to what it used to be. It's going to be a very compressed thing. I'm actually going to be done at the end of fall. But while I'm doing that, I'm still working on getting the podcast out to you and just really enjoying this as kind of my break from everything. So I want to thank all of you for continuing to tune into the podcast. I want to thank Jim. Jim is probably one of the kindest and most flexible co-hosts in the world. I think people forget sometimes that Jim and I joke around on the show a lot with each other. Jim will do things to deliberately antagonize me for the purpose of getting me all riled up, and I will respond to it in kind. But he is genuinely one of my closest friends, and it's one of the things I love about doing this show with him. And I can't thank him enough for taking time out from his Italy trip to be able to record this podcast, because really this show doesn't work without Jim. On that note, we will be joining you next week with some new comic chat, and we will see you then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.